Welcome back to another episode of Roots and Readers. I'm Jennifer Forbes here at the Hampton Park Library in our community garden, and today we're going to talk about organic pest control and disease control. Now you may be wondering, what's organic pest control? What makes it organic? And organic pest control is controlling the pests and the diseases in your garden using a knowledge of nature and beneficial insects and predators in order to keep the damage to your plants minimal without having to resort to chemical fertilizers and pesticides. Now, first thing we're going to talk about is prevention. An ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. So there's a lot of things you can do before you ever get started with your garden while you're planning it out to prevent a lot of problems during your growing season. The first thing you want to look at is your soil. So what I want to tell you is basically with your soil, whenever you are preparing to plant, you want to make sure that your soil has plenty of compost. If it's not already rich and loose, and here in Georgia we have a lot of clay in the soil, so you're probably going to have to add something to it. But you want to be able to dig with your hands in the soil without hitting compacted dirt. This means that when it rains, the rain can go down into the soil. It'll be absorbed by the roots, but it'll also drain away from the roots. If you have compacted soil, you'll end up with tunnels, you'll end up with holes in the soil that will hold water, and if the roots are right there, it's going to end up rotting the roots. So you're going to have some problems with root rot in your plants if you don't have the right stuff in your soil. The organic components that come with compost will also help feed your plants and help give them enough nutrients. For pests and diseases that live in the soil, try rotating your crops every year or every other year. Or if you have a really bad year where pests get into a certain crop, you may want to go ahead and pull that crop out to prevent them from continuing the life cycle. And then make sure you plant that far enough away that anything that's overwintering and living down in the soil can't actually get into your crop in a different area. Another tip is to try planting varieties of vegetables or plants that are native to your area. A lot of native plants have developed a natural resistance over the years to your native bugs and pests and diseases, and they're going to be hardier and they'll require less care from you and attention. Your more exotic varieties are not going to be as resistant to your native pests and diseases and everything around. So it's going to take more time and energy from you in order to get the results you want from those plants. Also, look for varieties that are labeled disease and pest resistant. A lot of these varieties will last longer. They may eventually succumb to any pests or diseases that you have, but it may take longer and you'll get more crop from them or a longer enjoyment out of them. Also think about companion planting. Planting different plants together can actually help each other. One may exude some kind of chemical that will repel pests that like to feed on the other one. The other one may release nutrients during its growing cycle that the other one needs to thrive. As I've mentioned before, I've planted some green onion here in with my cabbages. Rabbits don't really like onion. They like cabbage. I'm hoping that the smell of the green onion that I have in here with my cabbages will kind of deter them and keep them from eating my cabbages here. Another tip is to make sure that you sanitize your tools and all of your equipment whenever you're gardening. You can actually carry other diseases, fungal spores or bacteria from other gardens or even plant nurseries. If you notice something there, you can actually track that into your own garden. They can hitch a ride on your clothes or your shoes So if you do go to a plant nursery, or if you just go to somebody else's garden, you might want to go ahead and change before you go work in your own garden. It doesn't sound like something that would be that important, but you can actually spread disease that way. Also, sanitizing your tools between different types of plants. You want to go ahead and clean your tools, have multiple sets of tools if you can, or just have a little bleach solution with you and some water. So you want to go ahead and do like a 10% bleach solution on your tools, and then rinse it really, really well with water so you don't harm the plants that you're trying to care for. And that'll keep you from transferring any kind of spores or bacteria from one bed to the other and spreading it around your plants. A final preparation tip is to think about keeping a journal. If you will record when you plant your seeds, where you plant them, and I guess what the weather is like that year. Need to record any time you see signs of pests coming out, what kind of pests they are. You can go ahead and you can plan your garden in future years around that. So if you know that a certain pest comes out and you're seeing it consistently in May, you may want to start your seedlings a little earlier inside. Plant them a little earlier so they'll come to harvest before that pest comes out. Or you may need to get your seedlings past the vulnerable stage and then plant them a little bit earlier so that they'll be larger and hardier before this disease is rampant, so they have a better chance of surviving it. So make sure you check your garden frequently. This is some strategies you can use while your garden is growing. Inspect your plants and the vegetation around it. Look for holes where insects might have chewed a hole in your leaves. Look for wilted leaves or plant issues. Also look for any kind of holes that have been dug in your garden. Holes like this could indicate that you have rodents or other animals around. If they're looking for grubs and digging in the ground, you might actually have some grubs, and this is a great way to know they're finding things in your yard that you may not see that are underground, and you can check your soil and make sure you don't have pests underground that you can't see yet. You can control those a little sooner before they actually do too much damage to your plants. So observing your garden daily, if possible, is a great way to catch problems early. The next thing you want to do after noticing damage is you want to determine the cause of the problem. Are the yellow leaves from a bacterial infection or a side effect from something eating at the roots? You can't effectively treat the problem until you know what's actually causing it. Study the life cycles of common pests in your area. This is another time, again, keeping a journal can be helpful. Some pests always appear around a certain time. If you learn the life cycle of that pest, you can figure out whether to plant their favorite food earlier or later in the season, and hopefully avoid too much damage. You will also know when to start looking for signs of their damage and hopefully catch them early. With our cantaloupe plant here, we had cantaloupes that were growing. We were very excited. We had a nice cantaloupe that was growing bigger, and I came out to look at it one day. I noticed holes in it. This is a sign of a pickle worm or a melon worm. Something has actually gotten into it and the fruit is ruined. So I picked it off the vine and moved it out of the garden. And then as I was inspecting the vine, because now I know what to look for, I was finding some holes in the vine. So I have something burrowing into the vine as well. I did not get a row cover, which you can put over some of your plants to protect them from flying insects, pests. I did not get one in time before we lost our fruit. So unfortunately, we are not going to get any cantaloupes this year from the vine. And in fact, by the time I caught it, there was so much infestation in it, I'm actually going to end up pulling out the cantaloupe vine, and I'm going to put it in a plastic bag, and I'm going to dispose of it so that I don't contribute to the life cycle of the larvae and the moths that lay the eggs that cause the problem. So hopefully we won't have problems in spring with more of our vines. So my decision to pull the cantaloupe vine and dispose of it actually leads into the next section. Decide whether intervention is actually necessary. If you notice a few spots on a plant or a few bites taken out of a tomato, the damage may not be enough to actually require intervention. Sometimes waiting a bit may allow natural enemies of that pest to take care of the problem without you having to do anything. Start with beneficial actions. Try solutions that have the least harmful impact before you move on to more drastic solutions, depending on the problem. For some pests, you can introduce natural predators and parasites that'll take care of the problem for you or set up sticky traps. The plant cover I mentioned earlier is an example of that. The moth form of the pest that ruined the cantaloupe is nocturnal, so placing the cover over the plant in the evening and then removing it in the morning keeps the moths from laying eggs on the leaves and flowers at night. Again, unfortunately, the moths found the baby cantaloupes before my cover arrived, and that's when I discovered the fruits, the holes in the fruit from the larvae. If you try these solutions and they don't work, then you can move on to employing other methods such as natural insecticidal soaps and sprays. Remember to document what you did and how effective it was in your journal for future reference. Also remember to research your treatment carefully before applying, paying close attention to what will be affected. Diatomaceous earth is a powder that will cut up insects, but it isn't selective and will also kill the caterpillars in your garden, as well as other worms, slugs, etc. You may think that killing all the caterpillars eating your veggies is a great thing. If you think about it though, caterpillars are the larval stage of butterflies, one of your best pollinators. A lot of organic dusts, soaps, and sprays can harm bees as well, so be sure to apply these as a last resort and spray early or late in the day when bees aren't as active. Finally, I wanted to share a great resource I found here in the library. The Organic Gardener's Handbook of Natural Pest and Disease Control. This book talks about prevention, solutions, and can help you identify pests, fungi, and bacteria damaging your plants. If you need help finding information, just ask us. Remember that at the Forsyth County Public Library, we know books. If you're interested in getting some practice with gardening, contact me here at the Hampton Park Library. The best way to learn is by getting your hands dirty.